Hey, how's it going, folks? So, I want to discuss a few things that have happened in the recent weeks. Chime in my 2 cents on it. I'm going to start off with the possible overturning of Roe v. Wade. I'm going to start off with a disclaimer here because I know I'm going to get it in the comment sections. And that is, well, I'm opposed to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and I support all these other freedoms that you're talking about. Um, okay, on that, I understand. I understand that you yourself don't support the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and that there are other freedoms that I'm going to talk about that you are also in favor of. However, you seem to be the exception to the rule from everything I've seen so far on this. And I'm going to go into responding to the rule. All right. I'm going to start off with Roe v. Wade itself. I mean, it was done largely off the lies of one person who's come out later and said that they were not being truthful. That's the first shaky thing about this case. So already you have shaky foundations based off a lie, but the worst precedent it set was the fact that it was ruled not based on the text of the Constitution, but what they wanted the Constitution to say. Now, the Supreme Court should not be in the business of rewriting the Constitution. It's not their constitutionally delegated authority, it's them going beyond their bounds. Furthermore, if you want to change the Constitution, there's a method to do that. It's called Article 5. And if you don't know what Article 5 is, you probably shouldn't be telling anybody what is constitutional versus what is not. I mean, here's the thing, if you want to talk about constitutional versus unconstitutional, read the Constitution. Too many times we have people coming in saying, well, this is constitutional, this is unconstitutional. And they haven't really read the Constitution. They don't know what the Constitution actually says. This is my problem with the ruling on Roe v. Wade, is that it wasn't done on any basis of any text of the Constitution, as far as I can see. It was done solely because this is what the judges or the justices wanted the Constitution to say. We've had a lot of disrespect to the Constitution go on in this country for quite some time. And Roe v. Wade was just another drop in that bucket. So Roe v. Wade being overturned is probably going to be a good thing for the Constitution at the end of the day. Now, people are going to argue things like, well, there are states with trigger laws. Once Roe v. Wade gets overturned, they're going to revert to restrictions on abortions that are very serious, to say the least. Yes, that part is true. So with that being said, this is where you either A, need to fight this at the legislature, or B, live in a state that doesn't have the restrictions on the abortions that you hate. Or, and you have this option as well, if you live in such a state and you need an abortion, well, you can go to a state with lax abortion practices and go purchase your abortion, go get your abortion there. Nothing's stopping you. With other rights that are protected under the Constitution, you don't necessarily have that option. Big one that comes to mind is the RvW, and that actually does have an explicit protection in the Constitution. And it more explicitly, it says it should not be infringed. It shall not be infringed, but we all know how much we actually pay attention to the text of the Constitution. But to give you some examples, say you're living in California and you want one of these. You can't simply go to Nevada, buy one of these, and bring it back to California, can you? You're not offered that protection. Whereas if you were, say, living in Tennessee after Roe v. Wade gets overturned, and I think Tennessee is one of those states with a trigger law, nothing's stopping you from going to like New York or California and getting your abortion. Roe v. Wade, that being overturned, just simply puts it all into the hands of the states. Furthermore, if you say live in New York and you want to get one of these, you can't simply go to Pennsylvania and purchase one of these. Well, not legally anyway. You have to purchase a handgun in the state of your residence, and that's not state law, that's federal law. And of course, as we know in New York, they make these things almost illegal for the average person to be able to own, even. And not to mention, there are features on this that probably are illegal in New York, namely the magazines. So, and yet, if there was any effort to change that might actually be successful or have the chance of being successful, many of these very same people who are screaming about Roe v. Wade being overturned now be up in arms. And the way I can tell this is because I can look at people like Shannon Watts, who have tweeted about the potential of Roe v. Wade being overturned. She's up in arms about this. But yet, I guarantee you, she'd be up in arms at the mere suggestion of the law that prohibits you from buying a handgun outside the state of your residence being repealed, overturned, struck down, whatever you want to call it. Furthermore, these people are not principled in any of their arguments. Let's look. They say Roe v. Wade, we have a right to privacy. Okay. Since we have a right to privacy, why didn't the NFA registry go away? Why is it the term, a term, anyway, one of the many terms of me being able to lawfully own this, be that it has to be registered with the federal government? Two items on it, the rifle and the suppressor, have to be registered with the federal government for me to legally be able to own this. So why aren't we getting rid of the NFA registry if we have a right to privacy? My body, my choice. Well, you guys showed us in 2020 that didn't really matter to you. You know, my body, my choice clearly didn't matter to you guys from 2020 to present day when we were talking about shit like forcing people to wear masks, allowing people to leave their homes. These mandates on vaccines that are experimental in nature. Another one on the privacy thing. I think it was New York. They had a law in place where you had to show proof of vaccination just to go to a fucking restaurant. So, again, my body, my choice, privacy, all that shit went out the window for them. And it's not the only time it's gone out the window, but it's one of the clear examples that was very widespread here in this country. So most of these people screaming about my body, my choice, privacy, and all that other shit with Roe v. Wade possibly getting overturned can quite frankly go pound sand to me. My response to them is just go pound sand. I don't really care. You didn't care about the freedoms that everyone else valued. You didn't care about everyone else's rights. And now it's something that's come up that you don't like may possibly happen. It may possibly lead to certain infringements on freedoms that you like is now there. And now all of a sudden you're up in arms? you don't have my sympathy whatsoever. Period. On voting, you know what? So far, it seems like there's two major things Republicans have been pushing for, and I don't disagree with them at all. First off, is that if you're going to absentee vote, you have to have a genuine reason to absentee vote. It can't just be one of those things where you don't feel like getting up off the couch to go vote. And the other thing is that they want you to have a valid ID. None of these things are unreasonable. Shoot, if it came to purchasing a firearm, and all I had to do was just show my driver's license, put the money down, purchase a firearm, and go, that would be actually favorable to me, compared to how the situation is. That would be favorable to anybody purchasing a gun in this country. Alas, we don't want to do that. And the very people who are sitting there saying we should register 16-year-olds to vote, that voting registration should be automatic, that we should be able to vote, by mail, no sort of verification whatsoever, that we shouldn't have to have an ID to vote, and all these other things. Yeah, I have a hard time believing this is simply about freedom with you guys. Because the second you say mail and guns, 9 out of 10 of you guys are going to flip out. So, with this being said, I'm going to say, again, I know Jinx mentioned this up. I don't consider voting a right. It's something that is protected. You can't discriminate on race, sex, or anything like that when it comes to being able to make the choice on whether or not you vote. But I don't necessarily consider that a right to do so. See, a right is something inherent to you. It's not something that you get to do on to other people. And voting is very much so that you're voting for people who hold specific offices and things of that nature. And I just don't think it's a good idea for somebody to vote into an election, and they don't even know what that position they're voting for covers even. They don't know the issues being discussed or anything like that. Yeah, I think it might be a better thing for those people to abstain from voting. If you can't name me all three branches of the federal government, it's probably not a good idea for you to vote. I mean, and all I really want is just, hey, you have to have at least some basic knowledge, and honestly, I don't think people who are sitting there solely going to vote for, a government handout should be the type of people we allow to vote, But alas, that's my opinion. And you know what? Nobody's really done anything to try to put any serious voting restrictions, like making sure whoever is voting actually has some basic knowledge, has to have that basic knowledge before they go and vote. So with this being said, I think that the restrictions on mail-in voting and the restrictions on voter IDs should be in place. Furthermore, no, DC shouldn't even have the representative that they were constitutionally allotted, much less any senators. DC is the hub. Our lawmakers spend over half their time, our federal lawmakers, I should say, spend over half their time in DC. Trust me. DC is getting more representation than any of these other states, and they don't even have a senator. DC is specifically the federal government. So our system was set up to represent the states and respectively the people, not the federal government. It's why, by the way, Virginia and Maryland had to carve out some ground and say, okay, this territory is no longer a part of Virginia or Maryland. It's its own independent territory. It's specifically because our founders did not want one state in and of itself above all others. So, yeah, on that one. So, moving on, Ukraine. All I'm going to say with this one is I don't think we should be wasting our time, money, or anything of that nature on Russia and Ukraine. Neither one of them are good guys in this situation. You look at the Ukraine government, it's very corrupt. It's very not so much deliberate democracy that some people defending it want to make it out to be. I can name a number of things that they do there that, the Republicans, if they did anything like a mild version of it, half the people who are saying I support Ukraine, or more than half probably, who are saying I support Ukraine would be saying, oh, well, look, the Republicans are trying to turn us into a fascist state. So it's more than just Ukraine being not perfect. Yeah. And furthermore, there are things that Ukraine does that I don't approve of, that the Democrats approve of, that people on the left tend to approve of, such as their draconian gun laws. I don't support those gun laws at all. And furthermore, they actually have to violate their own gun laws or change their own gun laws just to issue out all the rifles to their private citizens to defend the country from Russia. I guarantee you, after the whole situation's over, they're going to go back to ignoring the rights of their people there on that respect too. So why would I support them? The only reason why the government's issuing out rifles and a little bit of ammunition to its citizens to begin with, it's just simply to protect its own corrupt ass. So, yeah, I can't support that. And quite frankly, with everyone screaming about all the problems we have here, with shit like homelessness, with shit like the tent cities, with shit like that, I really don't think it's a great idea to be sending our money over there. It's funny because you have all these people talking about, well, we have people in tent cities. We have people who can't afford to take care of their children, yada, 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 yada. And then the first thing they want to do is send our tax dollars over to Ukraine. Put economic sanctions on Russia, which I'm not opposed to all of them. However, when it's being done one way and we're sitting there, say, ignoring China, which is an even worse human rights violator than Russia, that to me, it reeks of double standards. And furthermore, many of the people supporting Ukraine probably haven't heard of all the Yemenis that got bombed by the Saudi Arabians. But of course, obviously we're allies with Saudi Arabia, so I guess that don't count, does it? So, yeah, I think we do need to start getting back out of the rest of the world and start focusing on us. Namely focusing on getting us back to a constitutional republic and doing what we can to fix our own issues here back at home. So, on that note, I'm going to move on to wrapping this up. So, you guys got the comment section below. Y'all take her easy out there and have a great day.